Hello and welcome to today's video. This is the 6th video in the alphabet book challenge recommendation series, and therefore, as it is the 6th video, in this video we're going to be recommending books beginning with the letter F. So all the books mentioned in today's video will fulfill the F prompt for the alphabet book challenge. There are 9 books that I'm going to talk about today. I don't know how we've got 9 books, but yeah, F seems to be a really popular letter to start the book title with, so we're just going to go for it. Yeah, if you somehow made it here and you're not aware of what the alphabet challenge is, the alphabet challenge is essentially use the alphabet A to Z, 26 letters, and you have to fulfill a book beginning with each of those 26 letters. There are no rules, no regulations. It's very much just like a self-imposed challenge. There are a couple of things that people tend to do but you don't have to do. This is one that books beginning with A or the don't count. So for instance, the Maze Runner wouldn't count for T because it's a the, and wouldn't count for M because there's a the in front of it. So that's one of the rules. And then the other thing is the time period this is over. Most people I'm aware of, myself included, do this yearly. So, you know, 12 months of the year, start at the start of the year, end at the end of the year, and you have those 12 months to complete the challenge and read a book beginning with every letter. Obviously you don't need to do this, you can have it running, so it's just there until you finish it. You can give yourself a shorter time period to complete it, a longer time period, anything. You don't have to give yourself that limited amount of time. That's just something that I'm aware that a lot of people do. So yeah, that is the alphabet challenge. You literally just reading a book beginning with every letter of the alphabet to complete the alphabet, and that would complete the alphabet challenge. So yeah, today we are doing book recommendations for the letter F. Now there's quite a few books I need to talk about. So we've got books that are kind of like comic strip style, graphic novel type books. We have contemporary books, we've got mystery, we've got fantasy of I think all age ratings, and we also have some fantasy romance and one sci-fi. So yeah, quite a large variety of genres. I'm hoping to hit quite a lot of what people like to read. These are all books that I've read, I genuinely recommend. It is a complete fluke that there's 9 in. I don't think there's ever been 9 before. There's, you know, I normally try and do at least 5, but 9's a lot. So I'm just going to get straight into them, I think, and just talk about the books. These are in no particular order at all. These are just the order I've wrote them down in. So it's probably roughly the order I've read them, but I haven't gone out my way to sort that out. First up, we have Fangs. This is an absolutely amazing kind of like comic strip style graphic novel where we've just got these silly little scenes playing out, and they're just funny. Like, they're actually funny. This is a very cute, interesting book. We essentially have a werewolf and a vampire, and it is whether they're going to date or whether they should be eaten. Yeah, like one of the first things that we see in this comic book is a pro-con list for whether to date the werewolf or eat the werewolf, and it's just silly stuff like that. And you know, it's just silly little comic strip style things of what happens when the werewolf and the vampire are hanging out together, and like the differences in them. Like, yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoyed it. It's a very quick read. Like, it probably doesn't even take half an hour to read, but it's so much fun. It's such a great time, and I just really enjoyed it, and I feel like a lot of other people would really enjoy it too. Then we have Felix Ever After. This is a contemporary novel, essentially all about love, but also about identity and finding yourself. That is, I feel like, the overarching plot of this. I feel like it was really good. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed my time reading it. It definitely went places that I wasn't expecting it to go, even after having read the synopsis. And it was very much like, in the end, all about friends, friendship groups, finding yourself and being able to be yourself around other people. And then also like a little sprinkling of love. But to say, like, a lot of the synopsis does talk about love and like finding love and a happily ever after. Like, that was like a nice little added sprinkle. Like, so much of it was just about being happy within yourself, and I found it a really lovely read. I think our main characters here are about 18, 19. I'm pretty sure this is young adult, but I read it only a couple of years ago and thoroughly enjoyed it, so I do feel like it could be enjoyed by a large variety of people. So yeah. Then I'm going to recommend one that personally, I mean, I thought this book was fine, okay, but I am an outlier and everyone else in my personal life who's read it has enjoyed it, and I feel like everyone I've seen online has enjoyed it. So this is Finlay Donovan is Killing It. I'll show a picture in here because I no longer own the book. But yeah, this is a mystery, a murder mystery, kind of. It's like a con woman, but not really. Oh my gosh, I'm not explaining this well. So essentially we have Finlay Donovan, who is a crime murder novelist, writer, and is meeting up with her agent one day in a coffee shop, gets overheard by someone who is thinking they are talking literally rather than about this book, and mistakes Finlay Donovan as a hitwoman and puts a hit on her husband. And it's just a lot of silly stuff that continues on from there. It's very like humorous. It's very much like everything's got a punchline. Like, I know loads of people love it, which is why I still wanted to mention it. Personally, for me, I just didn't connect with the humour, and when like 70-80% of the book is reliant on the humour and you don't connect with it, I feel like that's why I didn't really love it. Like, I still found this first book fine. I think I gave it about 3 stars. Like, it was still a fine book. Like, I'm glad I did read it, but I won't be continuing on with the series sort of thing. It just wasn't for me. Like, the humour didn't work for me, and yeah, like, there's nothing really else you can do when you don't connect with the humour of a funny book. So, but a lot of people love this, so it is definitely a solid recommendation that I feel like a lot of people could enjoy and enjoy picking up. Then we have Frostheart. This is a middle grade fantasy book about our main character, Ash, who is essentially exploring the world. I don't know what it says on the back and I do not want to spoil it. Okay, so all we know from the back is that Ash, it has missing parents that he's waiting for, and he's got a grumpy Yeti guardian for company. An accident reveals that Ash has amazing magical powers, and he's whisked aboard the Frostheart, an explorer sled with a daring crew who need his help. That's all we know from the back, but yeah, it's a really lovely story. It's a lot of adventure, a lot of things going on. Magic is at the centre, but also we just have like this icy Arctic setting, and you know, even though it says like whisked aboard the Frostheart and explore a sleigh, like literally in my mind I was just imagining like a massive ship, but rather than being on water, it's got like little sleigh things, and it's going along that way. And it was just a really fun time. Like, I definitely want to continue on with this series. It was so fun, it was so easy to read. I feel like it's one of the few middle grades that I've read that like stands up as being like a really good book, that like without being like, this is a really good middle grade book. This is just a really good book. I'm sure there's loads out there, I just don't read a lot of middle grade, so I've only found a handful. But yeah, really enjoyed it, really would recommend it, and it was a really fun time getting to explore this world, make friends, and see the plot progress quite a lot. Like, this is a trilogy and I'm very intrigued to see where we go from this one. Now, this is a book that I read many years ago and I found it really good at the time, but I'd never read anything like it, and I'm really hoping that it still stands up. But hopefully this recommendation is still solid, and that is Finding Audrey. This is essentially, I can't even really tell you what this book is about. It doesn't say it on the back, and whilst I don't think that a plot point like this should be used as like a spoiler thing, because it doesn't say it, I don't want to risk that or like make anyone upset by like saying it. So yeah, essentially Audrey can't leave the house. She can't even take her dark glasses off inside the house, and then her brother's friend Lina stumbles into her life and she goes to Starbucks, and it just starts from there, and it is just all about Audrey really figuring herself out, finding herself. I mean, it's called Finding Audrey, so yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it was really good. Like, this is YA, and I definitely feel like it's one of those that I wish I would have read as a young adult. I think it's very eye-opening, it's very easy to understand and relate to, and understand why Audrey is feeling the way that she is feeling. And it is definitely a book that I would recommend. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it stands up from when I read it like 3 years ago. But yeah, really thought this was really solid when I read it. Then I'm actually going to swap the thing around and do the sci-fi next, and then the last 3 are all fantasy romance, and I think that makes the most sense. So we have h.eather. This is a very funny, very like humorous, short little novella sci-fi. It is about 2 minimum wage employees who have recently broken up, but then one day at work in this IKEA-like store, a elderly customer stumbles into a wormhole, and it turns out that wormholes can just appear in these stores, and as an employee it's their job to go and find this elderly woman, and you know, they get training into these wormholes, these portals into other dimensions, and they have to go find the missing granny. It's so fun, it's so great. It ended quite ambiguously as well. There is a second book in this series, so I'm really intrigued to pick that up and see if it follows on from this, or if it's its own standalone just in the same world. But it was just so much fun. That is the best word that I can think to explain this. Like, the humour was really on point, and it was just very dry, I would say. It's probably the best way to do it. But we also got to explore so much as well. So it's so short, we explored so much. I don't want to tell you anything else because it is so short. Like, this is only 134 pages. It is a tiny little book that you could really enjoy, sit down, read in an afternoon or whatever. But it's just so much fun. It really had those vibes, those feelings, and there wasn't much explanation, but the visual and the ability to see what was going on was so easy. Like, it was really a good time. Also, Jafar is coming to be annoying. You like this book too, didn't you? Oh yes, oh yes. Do you want to go on the bookshelf? Yeah, you're going on that one. Oh my gosh. Okay, and then we are on to the fantasy romances. I think this is just in the order that I read them. So, from Blood and Ash. This is the start of a fantasy romance series. This is the first book in the series, and we essentially follow a maiden, Poppy, who has lived this very sheltered life, this life of being told what is right, what is wrong, this life of this is how the world works, and just kind of going along with it. And then throughout the book, a lot is learnt, and from what is said on the back, I don't think I can tell you any more than that. There's a god involved. The god is called Hawk. It's a fantasy romance. I'm sure you can see where this is going, but yeah, there's literally nothing really said on the back that like says anymore, so I don't want to give it away. But I think it's a really solid fantasy romance. There is this series and there's a prequel series. Personally, I do prefer the prequel series to this series, but it's still a really fun time. You know, when these books come out, when I get round to them, I eat them up in a few days, even though they're like 600, 700 pages. So really, no complaints about it. It's a solid fantasy romance. If you enjoy the fantasy romance genre, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't enjoy this one too. And honestly, you get so sucked into the first book, I feel like it's very easy to just keep going and keep binging them. So it's a really solid series for that too. Then we have Fortuna Sworn. This is another fantasy romance, and in this one we have Fortuna, a main character, and her brother's gone missing, and she's searching for that brother. The brother went missing 2 years ago, and she essentially, you know, is secretly hunting and trying to find her brother still, but also is just living this life hiding among humans, spending her days working at a bar and nights searching for him. And then a fairy gets involved. She catches the eye of a fairy, and things progress from there. Again, on the back it doesn't say anything more except for the fact that the fairy does not hide his desire for Fortuna. But obviously, as you can see, it's a fantasy romance. The plot progresses. We are in this mystery to find her brother, but also opening up this whole new world with this fairy and what's going on there. I think it's a really interesting book. I definitely want to continue on with the series. They're all quite short books. They're only like, they're less than 300 pages, and this first one was really solid. It opened up the world, it gave a lot to think about, and I feel like in this one, like, the plot kind of started, but I don't feel like we've truly seen what's going to happen in this world yet. And I'm really intrigued to continue. Again, another solid fantasy romance series. This is one of the first fantasy romance books that I read, and I really liked it. It was good. It was a good, fun, easy time, an easy world to understand, and a very easy like narrator and main character to get behind and learn about this world with. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. And then last but not least, one of my most recent reads, and probably the most popular book that I'm speaking about today, is Fourth Wing. This is another fantasy romance. This is a very popular one. Like, honestly, if there's one book that people have heard about at this point, it will be this one. But yeah, I read it and I do think it is a decent book. I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. It was a really good opening to the world that we are seeing, and I feel like, you know, this is the first book in a 5-book series, and I feel like we do understand the world at this point, and I'm really intrigued to see where it continues and goes. We follow Violet, and Violet wanted to be a scribe but is forced by her mother to go into the Riders Quadrant, and in the Riders Quadrant you essentially pass, you like complete the tasks and get a dragon and you become a rider, or you die. There's no other way out. And during the Riders Quadrant she meets Xaden, who is a powerful, ruthless wing leader, and a lot of people, Xaden included, really hate Violet's mother. She's done a lot of questionable bad things, and a lot of people wouldn't mind taking out that anger and frustration on Violet, as she is there and her mother is not. So yeah, every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly, the kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise. Even worse, Violet begins to suspect the leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Everyone at Basgate has an agenda, so sleep with one eye open, because once you enter there are only 2 ways out: graduate or die. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I would say once you get to kind of the halfway mark, you'll just fly through the rest of it because so much happens. It's really interesting. It's a very easy world to read. It is one of the few fantasy books where I feel like no matter where you are in your fantasy journey, you can pick this up and understand it. If you've never read a fantasy book before, I feel like there's enough explanation and it is simple enough that you'll be able to understand it and know what's going on. But also, if you've read a lot of fantasy, you might not be surprised by any of it or like really have to learn anything, but you can still enjoy it for the fun that is there. So yeah, really solid recommendation there as well. And those are all of the books. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you found a recommendation here. As always, if you have any recommendations for the letter F, any books that you've read and loved and enjoyed and would like to recommend to people, leave them in the comments down below. It can be a massive resource for lots of books beginning with F. Do give the video a like if you liked it. Subscribe down below if you'd like to see more content like this, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.